Okay, we're starting Unit 18 today, and the main part of Unit 18 introduces you to a fourth athematic verb in the same series as τίθημι, δίδομι, and histemi. And it really is extremely similar to τίθημι. It's almost identical, in fact. Belisi's put up on the blackboard the asterisk form there, this thing with <hesitation>, that's the original form. There once was a y in ancient Greek, there isn't anymore. And so you can see that this is a reduplicated form like δίδομι, that's the present of the verb. Originally there was a y. When the y disappeared, it turned into an initial h. So that's why the first form is 뾱ημι, not 뾱ημι. But that y, which becomes here, is going to disappear outside of the present system. Okay. The other aspect of it that's like τίθημι is that you have change in the vowel in the stem. Okay, that is in the present singular you've got an eta. That's really the root. Yeah, we get without the y, it's just okay. You got the h, so it's he. Okay. And that can alternate between the form with an eta, the form with an epsilon iota, right, the diphthong form of the stem, and the form with an epsilon. So just as you have with τίθημι, you have the stem the with an eta, the with an epsilon iota, and the with an epsilon. So you have the same with 뾱ημι. So basically, these things are the same. The distinctions are minute, okay? And as long as you keep in mind the principle that you have reduplication with an I in the imperfective aspect system, okay, so in the present and the imperfect, you're going to lose that reduplication with an I and have something like reduplication with of a different sort, okay? In this case, we'll see what it is because we're not beginning with a consonant, but we're going to have K reduplication in the case of 솎ημι. A K suffix and vocalic reduplication in the case of this word. And then the aorist you're going to have no reduplication, so the root's just going to be he, okay, or or whatever it is, okay. It's the principles of it are the same. So the endings are the way it works is that you have a stem, and it's either he a in the case of the present system, imperfective system he a, or he a with an ei. Then you just add the athematic verb endings, and remember those are different. Mi in the first person singular, si in the third person singular, and asi in the third person plural. And then in the secondary endings for past tenses, you got nu, sigma, and nothing. Then man, te, and san as a third person plural ending. Those other endings, nu, sigma, and nothing, are the same for athematic and thematic verbs. You're drifting off the picture here, Lacey. Come on. All right. So if we look at the particular forms, we've got ἓημι. The I is the reduplication, is the result of the reduplication. The iota is the only thing that's left in the H. And then you've got the stem e and then the ending mi. And the second person singular have hies. That's the original and the archaic form. There's a secondary form that the book is giving you with an EI, and notice there's a circumflex over it. That's a sign of contraction. What eventually happens, for example, if you start reading the New Testament in ancient Greek, Koine Greek it's called, these verbs become contract verbs. Okay, so that's a secondary form. The original form is definitely hies with a long vowel, smack up against it and not contracted. Then hiesi, which can have a new movable, remember, at the end of it. That's your third person singular. In the plural, you switch, you still have the reduplication, and you switch to the short vowel form of the stem. So we got here and here. And what was, for example, in τίθημι, you have τίθημεν, τίθετε, τίθεasi. In the case of ἓημι, weirdly, you have contraction. Okay, so you get hiasi. It's really weird because the only thing you've lost, therefore, the root, which is the e. Okay, but that's no longer clear to the people who are doing it, so they think of it as he, I guess. All right, so if you look at the imperfect is going to lengthen that iota all through the paradigm to make an augmented form, just like hίστημι, as histeme becomes he stain, he stays, he stay, and so forth in the imperfect tense. So, and here you see the same alternation between in the vocalism of the stem that you see in titheme. So in the imperfect of titheme, it's etithane with an eta, and then etithes and etithe, both with epsilon iota. Here's what you got. He ain, he ace, he a, and then revert to the third person in the plural to the short vowel form of the stem. He amen, he eta, he asan. There's your past tense ending. Okay? So what distinguishes the first and second persons plural is the long vowel. Okay? Should we move on to the next page?
Yep.
So on this page, the first form list is missing an accent over the omega there, right? Be a circumflex. Okay. The first column has a subjunctive. Okay. What's happened is, as it says at the bottom of the blackboard there, all forms are based on the stem here. Okay. We're going to see that for the rest of the forms that we're looking at practically in the imperfective aspect system. That is, the vowel alternation between here, and here disappears after the present and the imperfect. Okay, everything's going to be built on here. So what happens when you combine here with o, s, a, omen, eta, ose, is you lose the and you get a circumflex. Okay, you're contracting. It was originally the e would be the accented form, the omega, the eta, and the endings then would be unaccented, so you get a circumflex as a result. So he o, he ace, a, he omen, he eta, he ose, you should be comfortable with that. It's as though the stem is hi, okay? And then in the optative, you have the iota eta optative, hi, a, yen, hi, a, ace, hi, a, a. Again, based on the stem hi, e, and then plus iota eta, and then the new sigma nothing endings, and then the plural hi, amen, hi, eta, hi, an. You can also have the iota eta optative in the plural. In other words, that would be hi, amen, hi, eta with an eta, hi, an. All right, for the octave, but the shorter form is more common actually. Amen, he an rather. Then we have the imperative forms, second person singular, hit a. That means, well, yeah, we haven't told you the meaning of this word. It means to let go of something, okay, to release it, and therefore sometimes it's translated as send. Okay, really it doesn't means let go of a weapon, for example. That's the classic use of it. To release it like an arrow, okay, or javelin. That's sending it more less passively than letting go of it. So in Latin, the cognative of this word means just throw, okay? But the underlying sense is originally let go of it. Okay, so hit a means is what you say to a second person. Hit eto is let him or her throw it, and hieta and hienton second person plural and third person plural imperatives, all again built on the hit stem. Okay. Lastly, in the imperfective aspect, there's the present infinitive with the ending ni that we've seen in all these verbs. That's comparable to didani and to thenai and histanai, right? The hia is the stem, and on the ni ending. And the participle based on the stem hia, you get hies, hiesa, hien, and then hientos, hieses, hientos, and you can figure out the rest of the forms. So it's the hies is hient plus s. ENTS becomes EIS in Greek by regular process, and there's something similar going on to give you the feminine form, Hiesa, but that's a Thalta type feminine declension, and then Hientos is just the neuter in a predictable way. Original Hient becomes Hien, and the nominative and accusative. So I think these are forms that are familiar to you. It's just you've got a very restricted root here because of the sound changes, the disappearance of the Y. Okay, now we're looking at the aorist active forms of ཌήμι, where you're going to lose the y, which becomes h. You still have the h, okay, because remember the stem was ཌήμι, so the initial Y gets reflected as an h. If you look at the first form in the upper left-hand corner, that's the aorist with a kappa suffix, as you've seen in the singular of titheme, etheka, didome, edoka, not ཌήμι, but those two have the kappa aorist in the singular, so we have that too in this verb. Heka, hekas, heke. Notice these forms, I've talked about this before, have a dash in front of them because mainly in this verb in general is weakly attested as a simple verb. Most of the time it occurs as a compound. So ଆପ-ཌήμι, which comes out as a phi, άπ-ཌήμι, ep-ཌήμι. Those are the most common forms of the verb, and there are other compounds that you can do. Methymia is the other one, meta-ymia. That's the most common form of this verb, I think. It means let go of something. But so the inflections are preceded by the dash because they're usually occurring in compound verbs. All right, so we've got heka, hekas, heke. This is familiar if you remember the athematic aorist's singular of the other verbs. In the plural, you lose the kappa. You just have the long vowel form of the stem. No, what's happened is that you have a he, man, originally a short vowel form of the stem, and then it's augmented with an e. So it once was ye, men, and when the y disappears, you get the contraction of the two e's into ei, okay? So the he form reflects augmenting the thing and the contraction of the others, okay? And the contraction giving you an eta. Here you got an e ending and a short vowel with an e augment and a short vowel form of the stem. So that's why you have eta in the singular and epsilon iota in the plural. I hope that's clear. I'm not sure. But anyway, so we got he, men, heta, he, san, those predictable athematic endings. Notice what happens when you get to the aorist subjunctive. The only thing that's left of the stem, because of the contraction of the he, is just the h. So it's ho, hes, he, homen, heta, hose. Remember how the present subjunctive of the verb to be looks. It's just o, es, a, omen, eta, ose, because there's nothing left of the stem of the verb to be. Okay, so in the same kind of thing happens in the optative. You get just the h, hey, and hey, hes, hey, hey, men, heta, hey, hen, or with the iota eta optative, hey, men, heta, hey, san. The imperatives there, hes and heto. Again, the stem is he, and the endings are s in the second person singular imperative, and to in the third, and then the plural hete, and henton, consistent with everything we know about imperative endings in athematic verb formation. And the bottom of the page there is the way you form the aorist active participle. So hes, hesa, hen are the three genders, hentos, heses, hentos for the genitives, and from them you can generate the rest of the forms. Hes is from hence, okay, and it looks exactly like the form of the number one. Hents gives you hes, just like no, the other one, the etymology of the other one is a little more complex, but they end up being the same. But that means throwing or releasing. Okay, I'm going to stop there and we're going to do the middle and another one.